Hello everyone, today I'm here with Andreas Petersen from Denmark, I think.
Oh yeah, from the cold Denmark.
Not
Spring
everyone
is slowly getting here.
might know Andreas, but you're like known in the Eternal community. You love to play Vintage, Legacy and stuff like that. You play a lot of Magic Online events, like the bigger Eternal tournaments, even like Legacy GPs and stuff. You occasionally play other formats as well, especially Limited, but you're mostly known for your love for Eternal formats. And I think when I asked you about like interesting stuff about you, you actually said that you're a national champion in Pokemon back in the day.
Oh yeah.
That's where I would like to start. So were you just like play Pokemon as a kid, or how did that happen?
Yeah, so I guess we can go back to when I was 6 years old and my dad brought home the first booster pack of NBA basketball cards. So I just fell in love with cards back then. Then I collected those for a lot of years, and then Pokemon got released when I was like, I think 10, and then I was a bit slow to jump in on the hype. But around 11, I started collecting. But I was more interested in the game, and it's actually it's a fairly good game. And I played it for a couple of years. I played the big events, and I was lucky to win nationals when I was 12. I won a trip to Seattle where Worlds were held, and on that trip, I think I went 2-3 at the tournament. Back then, testing was super hard. It was a new format, so I had to do every theory by myself. You couldn't just Google deck lists and stuff. So my deck wasn't very good, but I didn't realize that until I got there. But on that trip, I visited a card store called Card House, and they had these Magic cards, and I was like, oh, this is the perfect level up moment. So that's where I transitioned from Pokemon to Magic. Right around the age of 13.
I want to ask about the Pokemon game more because not every interview you get to talk to someone who actually played the game. I used to play it as well as a kid, but I never really played tournaments. So like I know the basic rules, but I don't really know the specifics. You said that you won nationals at age 12. Was like were adults in that tournament as well, or was it just for kids?
Yeah, back then it would have 3 age groups. One was below 10, and mine was 10 to 14, I think, and then it was 15 plus. So it was kind of divided that way. And each of the winners got an invitation to the World Championship. So it was actually aged divided back then.
Oh, so you don't actually know that much about like the actual competitive scene with like all the adults, or do you?
I actually started following it recently. I got my old collection, bought some cards. So I'm actually kind of into the whole buying and selling Pokemon right now, and also competitive somewhat. I have an online account, and I play from time to time. It's kind of hard to keep up, but the game is quite nice.
Yeah, I was always interested in the game. Like I actually this is kind of awkward to say, but I actually like the way the Pokemon cards look better than the Magic cards look. I just like thought that the Magic is like more competitive and just more interesting overall as a game. But just from the viewpoint, I always liked Pokemon more. So I was just interested if like is the game actually like deep and hard to play, and are there like these big world championships and stuff, or is that not the case?
There are what would be kind of the same as GPs around Europe. It's pretty huge in like countries like Germany and stuff. But I'm not sure there are actual pro players. It's more there are professional content creators that play the game at a somewhat high level. But the competitive scene is not. I don't think. I mean, it kind of makes sense, right? It was meant for the kids back then, but now a lot of adults play it. But the game is still a lot less serious than Magic, and it's a quite deep game. It reminds me a lot of the format Vintage in Magic. Actually, it's kind of high paced. The decisions are a bit more focused around fewer turns on average. Of course, you can have your long Vintage games or short Standard games, but yeah, the decisions are quite hard, and around the like first 5 turns of the game. Kind of crucial.
It seems kind of weird that there are no like actual pro players and like tournaments like Pro Tours and stuff, because Pokemon is like more known than Magic, right? Even if you tell to my like 70 years old grandma what Pikachu is, she's gonna know what it is, everyone knows it. I assume that there are like more players overall than Magic players. Maybe that's not true. It just seems weird that that's not the case, but I guess it's just for kids.
The entry is a lot harder for Magic. I mean, I can't believe I started playing back in the day because it took me like 10 years to even become decent playing that game. Where Pokemon, I'm sure most, normal adults could spend like 3 months and then they would be somewhat competitive in that game. So I think it has to do with that as well.
So you flew to Seattle, and that was the first time where you like bought Magic cards.
Oh yeah.
Did you like immediately like did more, and like why was that actually?
Yeah. So at that age, I think by the time Worlds ran around, I was 13. It wasn't that cool to have Pokemon cards, but having Magic cards was more acceptable socially, I guess you can say. So I think looking back, that played a kind of a big role. But also I had a friend of mine who also, I'm not sure, probably don't know him. He was on the Danish national team a few times back in the day. We played a lot of Pokemon, but we kind of had the game solved, I guess you can say. So I think we were just looking for new challenges, and Magic was the perfect one. Also, when I went to small tournaments, I would go look at the Magic tables between my Pokemon rounds to just kind of, sniff a little around, and So it was a natural step, I guess you can say.
So after you bought your first cards, you like never really went back to Pokemon. You just like started playing Magic. Is that the case?
Yeah, that my last game of Pokemon, competitive game of Pokemon, was my last round at Worlds, where I dropped afterwards. So yeah, that was the end of the story for me, and the beginning of the Magic. Yeah.
You said you were 13 at that age, if I'm not mistaken, but you're kind of known for like liking these Eternal formats, which tend to be very expensive to play. How did that like work out? It just seems weird that like a kid who's like 14, 15 or 13 or something like that, would play Vintage. So did you like eventually got to that point, or how did that happen?
Actually, I started playing Vintage right from the get-go. I was able to borrow some cards from the regular guys at my store. We had a monthly, somewhat big Vintage event around, 75 people maybe. So I was able to borrow some cards in the beginning, and then I would just work a small job and spend all of my money buying these Power 9 cards. I remember sending $400 in cash to a guy in the US and buying a Mox Sapphire back in the day. So money order was actually a real money order, where you actually sent the bills and hopefully you would get a card a few weeks later. So I just grinded my way up, and I think by the age of 16 or 17 I had my full set of Power 9.
Wow, that's crazy, man.
But also a lot of different prizes back then.
I mean, sure, but even that being the case, I don't really know anyone else who would have all Power 9 by that age, but that's very impressive.
Yeah, that's the guys I looked up to at my local store. They played Vintage, so it was kind of the only way for me. I didn't really see it. I just loved it so much.
Yeah, I wanted to ask about that. It just like seems weird that you start playing the game and you immediately go to these formats. It's usually the other way around. Like you start at maybe just like playing random cards, and then eventually when you're like older and you don't really have that much time to play, you like start playing Vintage and stuff like that. But it's actually the opposite for you. So the reason was that the people around you were just playing Vintage, or how did that happen?
Yeah, it's just a lot cooler what you can do with a Black Lotus on turn 1 rather than a tap land from Standard. So I think that's just the appeal. And I came from Pokemon, which is a super action-packed game with very powerful spells. Back then, the spells in Pokemon was very strong, kind of like old Magic cards where the creatures are kind of bad, but the spells are insane. So I think that also, I think that's what I liked about it as well on the surface.
One thing that I'm interested about is that, you don't really, I mean, occasionally you do, but you don't really get like GPs and Pro Tours and like the really high level events in Eternal formats, but you're like a really good player. Was that never like an issue for you that, you can like win these big tournaments, maybe win like, prize money or something like that, but you can never really qualify to a Pro Tour, become a pro? Was that ever on your mind, or was that not really an appeal for you?
Oh, definitely. So my first GP was in 2013, where I kind of accidentally did well. So that's what I kind of lit my fire to play more competitively. And at that point, I had been playing Magic for 10 years without having the ambitions to go to big tournaments. But I got around to play in Strasbourg 2013 in Legacy. I did well, and I realized, okay, maybe I actually have what it takes. So from there, I would spend 3 or 4 years chasing a PT qualification. Actually, I started playing limited. I even played some WMCQs in standard.
Oh wow, really?
Stuff like that, and I actually felt like I was decent, and I was always lucky to have good friends along the way. Thomas Innevolds and Michael Bonde, Martin Dang, who would kind of help me out because they were light years ahead of me. But you can go a long way with a great network in Magic for sure.
Mm-hmm. I think you even won a limited GP alongside. Was it Thomas and Michael Bonde or?
No, that's Christopher Lawson.
Chris,
He
I'm
played
sorry.
that one. But I think around a year later, we placed second in a team trios.
Oh, sorry, I meant yeah.
GP. So that was back when in my home court, I guess you can say. I played Modern, Thomas played Legacy, and Michael played Standard. So no, I'm not a limited master and never will be for sure.
Oh, that's kind of weird that you actually didn't play Legacy. But I guess Thomas is very known for playing his Death and Taxes deck in Legacy. Was that the reason why you didn't play it yourself?
That's what a lot of people say. So Thomas played his pet deck. Actually, the case was that my pet deck, which was the 4-color Leovold deck, was, in our opinion, by far the best deck. But I felt like with my knowledge, I could help Thomas play it even a lot better than I would. So that's why we did it like that. So he played that deck for the first time, not playing the mono-white deck, and he played amazingly and I was sitting in the middle. So when there was these small things, he would just check with me, and I think that combination, really paid off.
What Modern deck did you play? Like, I assume that you don't really play that much Modern, do you?
I actually played a lot of Modern during those years, and I was kind of known for the Modern specialist. So whenever there was a WMCQ in Denmark in Modern, these pro players would write me about, hey, what to play and stuff. So I played Titan Shift. I think that deck is rather simple, and the context here was that Bloodbraid Elf just got unbanned in Modern. So I figured a lot of these, players who think highly of themselves, I'm sure they're great, they would play Junt. Yeah, so I would be happy to face them all day, and I played against Junt 5 times, and went 5-0. So I definitely did my job for the team. It was, but to be honest, I would have played Titan Shift regardless. So this was just a lucky unbanning that ended up, paving the way for our team.
You mentioned the fact that you grinded these PTQs. We kind of got of that. Did you actually ever got to qualify, or what happened with that?
So around 2014 or 15, I started playing a lot more Magic Online, and I qualified for this. Pretty sure it was monthly, or maybe I think it was a monthly MOX event where the winner would get a PG invite and an invite to the actual MOX.
Oh, you get invite to both.
Oh yeah.
Nice.
This was the big one. So I make it to the grand finals. I got super lucky matchups. I remember my sideboard being only 4 different cards, and I got to use them all. It was haymakers. Like I played blue Scapeshift. So this was Creeping Corrosion for Affinity. It was Feed the Clan for Burn, which is hilarious. And then I played a mix of Swansong and Gigadrowse for Twin and Control, I think. I don't really remember the last card. Probably something against Tron or Abzan, which was all the matchups I faced. But whatever, I make it to the grand finals, and I'm so hungover from the day before, and I just couldn't stay awake. I just resolved my Scapeshift. I'm about to win the whole thing, but then I just kind of collapsed on my keyboard. So when I wake up, I've just lost this finals on time. I have my opponent in the chat saying, "GG's, bad run," or condolences, stuff like that. So that was a very good story.
Did you actually fall asleep during that game? Like, actually?
Oh yeah.
Oh my god.
Winning the game. I wake up with the Valakut triggers on the stack. All I have to do is press on my opponent's life total and press yes like 8 times. It's a pretty sick story. So after a few days, I kind of got my thoughts together, and I wrote to Wizards. So I had this incident where I just talk about the day and how many hours I spent and how much I love Magic and stuff. If they could do anything to like to lick my wound, I guess. I don't know if that's an expression, but and they write me back, "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. We want everyone to have a good time on Magic Online. We would like you to give a special invitation to the PT Origins in Vancouver.
It's actually insane that they decided to do that, right? Like I understand that they can like replay the game and they will know that you had to win, you just like something happened. But you know, that being the case, like if you didn't message them, nothing would happen. But just because you did, they gave you the invite. That seems kind of weird. Like I mean, I'm definitely happy for you. I'm just saying that that's probably not the way it should be. But
yeah, I for them, I think how it worked was I would play in a 4-round tournament. Well, not really a tournament, but kind of, because it's not allowed to pay out money. So I would have to participate in a 4-round tournament at the PT, and everyone would get $1,500, which is like paying for the airplane basically. And I think they just realized that the Cinderella story was better than the alternative, where I don't know, I could make a scene out of it. I'm not sure, but I definitely agree with the point of view that it was my responsibility for sure. Whether my internet broke down, I lost power or whatever, it's not on them. So I was of course very thankful. So yeah, I got that fake PT invite, I guess you can call it. And then when I went there, I didn't feel like testing. I didn't like standard. I think I played Absent Control with. Yeah, I didn't test, but I like to draft. So I did a lot of drafts, and I was lucky to 3-0 my first pod. And day 2, which was kind of cool, I got to play against a lot of great players. But I didn't really feel like going for it after that, to be honest. It just wasn't for me.
Was the PT experience different than you expected? Because a lot of people, before they go to their first PT, they think that it's like some like insane thing. Like, I don't know, if you go to like a Wimbledon or something, and then then you get there and just like another tournament, like there are better players, but it just doesn't feel that special after that. Was that the case for you?
Yeah. At that time, it didn't feel special at all. The competitive environment was super cool. Everyone was super serious about it. Back then, it wasn't. I think a lot of teams just took 1 or 2 weeks off to prepare before and meet at a hotel and just draft all day and play standard all day. I think I was impressed by the work ethic, and I think it came down to the format. I just never was interested in standard, because when I qualified for the next one, which was the 25th anniversary, I felt it was awesome. And I played Modern, Thomas played Legacy, and we played with Elias Watzfeld. He played Standard. That was a great feeling, and I also feel like we got some more stuff at that event, maybe like a foil set or something. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. I actually still have it, I think, somewhere. I didn't open it yet.
We just felt also with the kind of the awesome playmat you could buy, the anniversary one with all the different artworks on. It just felt like that was how I anticipated the first one to be. So I guess I got revenge in 2019, I think it was.
Why do you think you don't like standard? There are actually a lot of people like that. I never really understood it. It might just be that the gameplay is very different. I think standard is more about like picking the right deck, having good sideboard and stuff like that, and less about actual decisions in the game. So if you're used to Legacy, maybe that's not for you. Are these the reasons that you don't like it that much?
It's tough to say. I remember playing in a WMCQ, and I actually liked the standard deck I played there. It was a Junt, maybe it was called Junt Planeswalkers. I remember Thomas won this one with.
I remember that deck. That was a cool deck.
Yeah, that was like more like a good stuff cube deck, I guess you can call it, because I love cube as well. So I guess it has to do with the actual decks available in the format. But generally, it's new cards come out and you kind of have to scrap all of your old cards because of the rotation. Where Legacy, you can always fall back on certain archetypes. I think that's how I originally didn't like Standard, because it would force me to update my collection all the time.
Is it maybe because like in the formats that you're like used to play, you just like more comfortable because you already kind of know what you're doing? You just like exchange like maybe free cards depending on the meta game, or maybe the new cards that are getting print. But with standards, you just have to like play everything from the scratch, and that might not be as fun for you. Would you say that's the case?
That's definitely a thing as well, where I can see, okay, for Legacy, I have to do a few days of catching up if I haven't played for a few months, where Standard is like almost starting from scratch. So yeah, it's definitely, you have to kind of know where your limits are, I guess you can say. How much time can you put into it, and what's the actual results you can gain from it? So stuff like that is definitely some calculations I'm doing when I'm picking my formats, definitely.
So you play those two Pro Tours. You said it's not necessarily for you, but you're still very active on like Magic Online and stuff like that. I often see you post like results from these like bigger events. I wouldn't talk about this myself, but you specifically said that you want to talk about it. There was an incident kind of recently where you won, I think it was like a big legacy championship online. I'm not exactly sure about the name. And you know, something happened before the top 8. Maybe it's better if you talk about it yourself. So just go ahead.
Yeah. So back in autumn or fall, depending where you are in the world, Wizards held these awesome Eternal Weekends online, because Eternal Weekend is this yearly tournament where there's one in Europe and one in the US where you can win original artwork for iconic cards like Dual Lands or Power 9 and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the pinnacle of Eternal formats, and these were held online. And I was able to play in one of them, which was a vintage event where the winner would get a painting of Mishra's Workshop, a very iconic vintage card. It's a 400-player tournament, stuff like that. It's 10 rounds. I'm sitting in the last round at 7-2, and I'm paired against a guy who's not live for top 8, and I am. I think I'm 10th or 11th at this point, so I have a good shot. I went on a deep run to start the tournament, maybe like 5-0. My breakers are doing great, so I know that this is probably a win and in. So I start by politely asking in the chat if he would like to help me top 8, which is somewhat normal. I think if I play like 3 or 4 weekends in a month, I'll experience this situation at least once, where you're asked for a favor and you can kind of do what you want about it. People can say no, people would say yes. And he's like, yeah, I would do that, but you would have to give me this and that. So now I have an ethical dilemma.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm just like, this story just happens over and over again, and it just surprises me so much that people just like don't know that you shouldn't be asking this stuff. It's just like a gentleman agreement that you don't do that. It just always like strikes me that it's still occurring to happen. But go ahead.
Definitely, you need to know the unwritten rules yourself, and your opponent also needs to do that. If one of them don't know it, then you can get into trouble. So the thing is here, this guy is offering me the win in exchange for something, which is bribing. It's the definition of bribery. So at this point, I go and check in the lobby if there's any support for this tournament, the DECs, which are usually online for these ones, but they cut those away recently. Wizards, so I can't really go there for support. So I'm in the heat of the moment, wanting to win this tournament, wanting to get 1 hour of, I can go to dinner, I can go for fresh air before the top 8. I tell him to write me on Twitter. So we talk on Twitter, and we agree about something meaningless like 25 treasure chests. It's definitely a huge win for me getting this buy for this low amount. So the difficult part here is that I'm kind of sacrificing the integrity of the game to earn something myself, which is just wrong by definition. So I'm definitely hope I would do something else in the future. I'm just trying to describe what was going through my mind there. But the thing is, my opponent is streaming this tournament, and he's dragging my chat window to his main screen, I guess, main monitor. So it's public for his, and I think it's only like 3 or 4 viewers, which is also kind of absurd. But one of these viewers take a screenshot of this and publishes it a few hours later, because I end up getting the buy from this round 10, getting the top 8, winning my quarters, winning the semis, winning the finals. So at that point, I'm pretty sure I'm home safe, but you never know. So I kind of celebrate with a big post on Twitter, and then I think it's the next morning when I see this screenshot of our private Twitter conversation.
That's crazy.
From a guy who I have no idea how he found it, but I mean, he obviously did the right thing for the game. But this just meant that my victory was all of a sudden in jeopardy. So I spent the next 2 weeks talking to Wizards back and forth. I have to write an official, what's that word called?
Announcement, or like
it's like when they give me a punishment, and then I can appeal. It's an appeal. Yeah, that's the word.
Okay.
So I write an appeal talking about the problems with the whole system of us getting paired, but the two of us having different, I can top 8 and win a painting worth 25k, and he can win 25 treasure chests. How the pairing in itself leads to dilemmas like this, and how it compares to an intentional draw or a concession in a real life tournament, which is very normal. I have even experienced this at Pro Tour level in the last round, where one of the teams would benefit a lot from a win, a lot more than the other team. I think this is rather normal, from what I understand. So I just try to draw some parallels to how the paper magic works. And I feel like they received that feedback and will definitely talk about it internally, but they said they had to make an example out of this, which is also very understandable. So after 2 weeks, I lost my title. They sent the painting to the guy in second place that I beat in the finals, and I got a 30-day suspension from Magic Online, which was not bad at all. So yeah, it was very hard to say no to at the time, because 25 treasure chests versus the chance of winning $25,000. It at that time it wasn't a hard decision. But
yeah, I'm not gonna cut too deep into that. It just seems crazy to me that the guy, first of all, he doesn't know that you cannot do this. I think it's like a common sense that you like can't do bribery, right? And at the same time, he's like streaming while doing that. That just seems you had no idea that he's streaming, right? Of course.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Yeah, and also I have seen his name in various top 8s, so I also kind of I was hopeful that he would accept. And I would just get this free buy, and then who knows, maybe I'll thank him later. But the two things cannot be, talked about together. Those two things have to be two separate things. So yeah, it was tough luck, but I'm also very happy with my run overall in that tournament.
Well, thanks, Andreas, for your time today. Before we end the video, maybe you can tell people where they can find you online, maybe on Twitter or something.
Yeah, for sure. And thanks for having me, Peter.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. We got to talk about some Pokemon all the way up to a recent incident, which was a bit of a controversial subject. But yeah, I'm Echo Baronin on Magic Online and Twitter, and I'll definitely try and bounce back from that incident. I realize I have some proving to do, and that's what I want to do.
Well, good luck with that. If you guys like the video, please click on the like and subscribe button, and see you next time. Bye bye.